We're about to begin a brand new love journey. Comment where you're watching from so we can see that our Soul Stories family is all around the world. The evening sea shimmered in silver, the waves rolling steadily like the weary sigh of someone who had just endured an exhausting quarrel with life. That was exactly how Lila Bennett felt as she dragged her squeaky suitcase along the stone path, leading into the luxurious Azure Pearl Resort. A year of freelancing as an editor, juggling demanding clients and deadlines tight as guitar strings, plus the shock of being betrayed by her boyfriend, had pushed Lila to decide, enough, I need a reset button. She booked a room at this extravagant resort not because she was rich, but because there was an off-season discount. Yes, Lila's adult life could be summed up in two words: bargain hunter. That afternoon, after a swim in the sea and reminding herself to love yourself, like women's magazines always say, Lila walked into the outdoor buffet area. She wore a white maxi dress, held a plate full of pink shrimp and blue cheese salad, and scanned the area for an empty table. Every seat was taken. Couples cooed like doves. Families shouted at each other as if it were a chaotic market. Lila sighed, then spotted a table tucked away in a corner, with only a jacket draped over the back of a chair. "Oh, heaven for singles," she whispered, pulling out the chair and sitting down. She hadn't even pierced her fork into a piece of watermelon when a deep, cold male voice sounded behind her. "You're sitting in the wrong place." Lila looked up to find a tall man in a simple white shirt, tailored to perfection. His face was as chiseled and cold as a Greek statue. Dark gray eyes pinned her as sharply as a cop catching a cookie thief. "Excuse me." Lila raised a brow. "This is an empty table. First come, first served. Buffet rules." The man set his wineglass on the table, his voice even. "This isn't an empty table. It's mine." Lila cleared her throat, leaned back in her chair, and flashed a defiant smile. "Does your name happen to be written on the chair? I don't see a sign that says, 'Reserved for Mr. Cold.'" He frowned, clearly unaccustomed to being contradicted. On his face, a furrowed brow was as sharp as a razor blade. "I left my jacket here. That's a clear sign." "A jacket?" Lila chuckled. "Oh, sorry. I thought someone forgot their winter fashion luggage at this tropical beach." A few nearby guests glanced over, stifling smiles. The man drew a deep breath, as if struggling to keep his composure. "You could find another table. And you could find a more charming attitude," Lila shot back. "However, it's clear that neither of us is getting what we want." He went silent for a moment, as if weighing whether to toss the whole table into the sea. Finally, he sat down opposite her, so smoothly the chair didn't make a sound. "Fine," he said, voice low and sharp. "Eat, but don't bother me." Lila's eyes widened. "You're the one bothering me. I was eating peacefully until you swooped in like a judge handing out sentences. I only want peace and quiet." "Trust me," Lila leaned forward, lowering her voice. "If you want quiet, you should learn to smile. People pay less attention when you don't look like you're calculating the worth of their lives." For a brief second, the corner of his mouth twitched almost a smile, but it vanished instantly. In Lila's head, a warning rang out. "Careful, Bennett. Don't mess with cold, handsome men. That's the recipe for heartbreak." But it was too late. She extended her hand as if in a job interview. "I'm Lila Bennett. Love black coffee, hate arrogant men." The man hesitated before replying curtly, "Damien. Damien." "What?" Lila tilted her head. "Don't tell me just one name. That sounds like a Marvel villain." "Damien Whitmore." Lila nearly choked on her water. That name was splashed across every business magazine and investment billionaire. The owner of Azure Pearl Resort. In other words, she had just sparred with the resort owner at his own table. She forced a smile, though irritation still bubbled inside. So what? Having money doesn't mean every chair has your name engraved on it. "Oh, wonderful. I just had the honor of sharing a table with the richest man within 100 kilometers. I suppose even the starfish will line up to bow to you tonight." Damien raised an eyebrow, his voice calm yet dripping with irony. "I rarely meet someone both reckless and noisy like you." "Thanks," Lila replied sweetly. "I'll take that as a compliment." The meal went on in a tension strung tight as a violin string. Lila tried to savor her grilled salmon while Damien scrolled through emails on his phone, occasionally glancing at her as if suspecting she might steal the silverware. When she finally stood up to leave, Lila turned and looked straight at him. "Mr. Whitmore, I wish you a very pleasant vacation. Alone," Damien countered, voice deep. "And I wish you would find a table no one wants to share." Both walked away, each thinking the same thing. Public enemy number one. But the sea outside kept whispering, as if chuckling at the fateful play that had just begun. The next morning, Lila walked down to the resort's grand lobby with a firm resolution. Today will only be about sunshine, the sea, cocktails, and absolutely no annoying men. She wore a pale yellow sundress, her hair tied up in a bun, and carried a book she planned to read by the pool. But the moment she reached the reception desk, her eyes locked on a large poster displayed prominently on the wall. "Welcome, Mr. Damien Whitmore, chairman of Whitmore Group and owner of Azure Pearl Resort." The photo showed a familiar face, cold, sharp, and, yes, the exact same man she had sparred with over a chair the night before. "Oh my God," Lila muttered, nearly dropping her book. "Not him again?" She was scratching her head in confusion when a deep voice came from behind. "You're still here. I thought you would have checked out immediately after last night's dinner." Lila spun around, startled. Damien stood there in a gray polo and simple khakis, yet carried himself as if the entire resort were his private stage. Taking a deep breath, she decided not to back down. "I paid for a full week here, and I'm not about to be chased away by some unpleasant boss." Damien raised an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement in his gray eyes. Most guests cowered or flattered him endlessly. But this woman didn't just refuse to flatter him, she criticized him outright. "I'll take note of that," he said, his voice half mocking, half intrigued. "You're the first guest to ever call me unpleasant." "You should thank me," Lila replied matter-of-factly. "At least I'm honest." That noon, Lila decided to relax on a lounge chair by the pool. She rubbed sunscreen on her arms, silently chanting, "No Damien, no drama, just vitamin D and peace." But fate had other plans. A shadow blocked the sun. Lila looked up Damien again, in a white button-down shirt with a few buttons undone, holding a laptop. He sat down on the lounge chair right next to hers, not even glancing at her, and opened his laptop. "Don't you have an office to sit in?" Lila frowned. "I like the outdoors," Damien replied curtly, eyes fixed on his screen. "At the pool," Lila scoffed. "What, planning to sign million-dollar deals while kids are doing cannonballs next to you?" As if on cue, a boy dove into the pool, water splashing everywhere. A droplet landed right on Damien's laptop screen. He clenched his jaw. Lila burst out laughing. "Told you so. Would you like me to buy you a waterproof case?" He looked at her, his expression torn between exasperation and frustration. But instead of snapping, Damien chuckled. Just a short, rare laugh. But Lila noticed. That afternoon, Lila decided to get her money's worth. She hopped onto a treadmill at the gym, earbuds in, listening to a podcast. On the treadmill next to her, a tall figure stepped up. Lila glanced sideways, her heart sinking. "Damien, are you following me?" she blurted out. "This is the resort gym. I own it." He emphasized his own as if to shut down her suspicion. Lila pursed her lips. "Then why not just put up a sign that says, 'No Lila Bennett allowed'?" Damien didn't answer, only adjusted his treadmill speed higher. Lila noticed the numbers jump. She snorted and upped her own speed. What started as a workout quickly turned into an unspoken marathon. 5 minutes later, both were gasping for breath. Sweat dripped down Lila's face, her hair plastered to her forehead. Damien's face was flushed red. It was the first time he'd been dragged into such childish competition. "I won't lose to you," Lila panted. "Nobody asked you to run," Damien shot back, equally breathless. They both slammed the stop button, nearly stumbling off their treadmills. The gym staff watching couldn't help but chuckle. That night, Lila recounted all her accidental encounters with Damien to her best friend Emma, who had come along on the trip. "Don't you see? Emma leaned her chin on her hand, eyes sparkling. This has to be fate. Fate, my foot, Lila grumbled. I just want to relax, but everywhere I go, he seems to follow me. It's like he's haunting me. Meanwhile, on the other side of the resort, Damien sat in the bar. His friend and business advisor, Victor, laughed after hearing the stories. I bet you've never met anyone like her. People usually fear you, but she argues back. Damien took a sip of whiskey, his gaze distant, but the corner of his mouth slightly curved. She's troublesome, but interesting. Both of them, in opposite corners of the resort, swore the same vow. Tomorrow I will definitely stay away from that person. But fate, of course, had no intention of leaving them alone. The next morning, Lila wanted nothing more than to pull the blanket over her head and sleep until noon. But the resort's loudspeaker had other plans. Dear guests, please gather at the East Beach to join our family bonding, team-building activity. Lila cracked one eye open and groaned. Family bonding. I came here to escape life, not to bond with strangers. Her best friend Emma, however, was as excited as a kid on a field trip. Come on, Lila, it might be fun. Half asleep, Lila let herself get dragged along. But the second she spotted Damien Whitmore standing on the beach, she was wide awake as if she had downed 3 espressos. Number, number, number. I need to stay away from him, she muttered, trying to sneak off. But life, of course, loved to mess with her. The host beamed as he announced, Today we'll randomly pair up into teams to face the challenges together. Lila swallowed hard. A bad feeling ran down her spine. When the cards were handed out, she looked down and froze. Her card said 17, a perfect match with Damien's. No way, Lila exclaimed. Damien glanced at her, lips curling. I wish it were a joke, too. The host clapped his hands in delight. Perfect. Team 17. Good luck to you both. Lila wanted to scream. My luck is pure bad luck. Lila sat in the front, Damien in the back. From the very first stroke, they were out of sync. I said left, Lila shouted. I am paddling left, Damien snapped. No, you're paddling like you're attacking a dolphin. Their kayak spun in circles like a top, making another couple paddle by laughing. Look, Team 17 is dancing, someone called out. Lila's face turned crimson. Damien gritted his teeth, gripping the paddle tight. Calm down, just follow my rhythm. If I followed your rhythm, we'd have sunk already. Just then, a small wave hit the side of the kayak. Lila lost her balance, wobbling. Damien reached out to steady her, but his clumsy move sent them both splashing into the water. They sputtered and coughed, struggling to swim back to shore. But before they could reach the sand, a rescue boat zoomed over. Except, it wasn't manned by professionals. 3 kids about 8 years old were playing Rescue the Grown-Ups. Grab on, mister. Miss, the smallest one said, offering a yellow duck float. Lila's face burned as red as a tomato. Clutching the float, she thought, I'm being saved by children. How humiliating. Damien climbed onto the boat in silence, soaked like a drenched model tossed off the runway. The entire beach erupted in applause and cheers, as if they'd just witnessed a romantic drama scene. Oh my gosh, they fell at the same time. Team 17 is adorable. See that? Explosive chemistry. Layla gaped. Chemistry? My foot! Damien glanced at her, voice calm but eyes faintly amused. At least we entertain the audience. Fun for them? Mortifying for me, Lila muttered. Back on shore, the 2 of them were forced to pose for a victory photo, holding a sign that read, Couple Team of the Day. Damien stood with his arms crossed, face icy. Lila gave a forced smile that looked like she'd just swallowed a lemon. Don't think this is an honor, she whispered. I'm going to sue the resort for pairing me with you. Go ahead, Damien replied, lips curving slightly. I'll personally be your defense attorney. Lila rolled her eyes. Damien rarely joked, but whenever he did, it made her want to whack him with a paddle. That night, Lila collapsed onto her bed, vowing, Tomorrow I'll definitely stay far away from Whitmore. Meanwhile, in his private office, Damien looked at the photo labeled Couple Team of the Day. The corner of his mouth curved faintly. What a nuisance, but unexpectedly interesting. That evening, a sudden storm rolled in. Thunder split across the sky, as if echoing someone's grief. Certainly not Lila Bennett's, but she felt completely in tune with it. She had just returned from the dining hall when the entire resort was suddenly plunged into darkness. Shouts echoed through the hallways, a few guests screamed, and staff rushed around frantically in search of candles. Lila froze for a moment before muttering, "Perfect. I pay for a luxury vacation and get a complimentary horror movie instead." A staff member appeared with a flashlight, directing everyone to gather temporarily in the common room for safety. Reluctantly, Lila followed the crowd. The common room was spacious, but it was packed with people. Lila found a chair in the corner, telling herself she'd just sit quietly until the power came back. But fate, as usual, had a fondness for teasing her. "Empty seat?" a deep voice spoke. Lila looked up and instantly wanted to slam her head against the wall. "Damian Whitmore. Number." "Taken," she blurted. "The owner just stepped out to get water." Damian glanced around, raising a brow. "Interesting. I'm the one who just went to get that water." Lila was speechless. He sat down beside her, completely unfazed by her murderous glare. The room buzzed with chatter, children crying, staff offering reassurances. Meanwhile, the two of them sat side by side in silence, as if locked in a contest of patience. Lila clutched her book tightly, vowing, "I will not speak first." Not a chance. But Damien was the one to break the silence. "Do you hate me that much?" The question startled her. She glanced at him and caught the depth in his gray eyes. They weren't cold this time. There was a flicker of sadness. She hesitated, then smirked. "I don't hate you. I just hate the way you act like the whole world is a nuisance." Damien leaned back in his chair and sighed softly. "Perhaps that's exactly what I am." Another pause fell over them. Then Damien spoke again, his voice lower now. "I come here every year, not for vacation, to avoid memories." Leela turned to him, her expression softening. He had never willingly shared anything before. And now, "My family used to have a summer house nearby. We came here every year, until the day a car accident took both my parents." He stopped, his hand tightening around the bottle of water. "I was the only one left. After that, I turned this place into a resort. People call it a business venture, but to me, it's just a way to hold on to what's left." Lila stayed quiet, her chest tightening. She'd never imagined that behind his icy facade was a wound that never healed. Not wanting the moment to get too heavy, she tilted her head and studied him. "So basically, you come here to hide from sadness?" Damien nodded slightly. "Makes sense then. You're like a big cat sulking in the corner, acting like everyone's annoying when really, you're just soaked in the rain and don't want anyone to touch you." Damien turned to her, caught off guard. Then he laughed, a real laugh, deep and short, but enough to make nearby guests glance over in surprise. "A big cat?" he repeated, lips curved faintly. "No one's ever called me that before." "Well, now someone has," Lila grinned slyly. "Don't worry, I won't tell the staff to bring you a litter box." Damien laughed again, longer this time. His laughter filled the dark room, and for a moment, Lila was stunned. He actually knew how to laugh, and when he didn't look bad at all. They sat there, no longer sparring. Damien shared a few snippets of childhood's sunny days running across the sand, simple family dinners. Lila listened, adding in light-hearted teases that kept the atmosphere from getting too heavy. She also told him about her freelancing life, how she constantly had to fix terrible drafts from so-called writers, to the point she once considered starting a therapy service just for editors. Damien chuckled softly. "I think you'd make it a success." "See?" Lila tilted her head, smiling. "You're not so bad at laughing after all. You just hide it too well." He looked at her, and for a brief moment, his eyes weren't cold. They held a quiet warmth that was hard to define. Just as the mood lightened, the power flicked back on. The chandeliers sparkled overhead, and cheers broke out across the room. Guests began to leave, but Damien stayed seated for a beat longer. Then he turned to her, voice calm but tinged with something new. "Thank you for not turning my story into pity." Lila shrugged with a mischievous smile. "Don't thank me. I only told the truth. You're still a grumpy big cat, but at least now I know why. Damien's lips curved again. Not a perfect smile, but a genuine one. For the first time, they no longer saw each other as enemies. The morning sun spilled across the fine sand like thin slices of lemon, soft, golden, and refreshing. Lila decided to break her streak of bad luck with a light trek around the northern cliffs, the million-like view spot every Azure Pearl guest was told to visit. She told herself firmly, no running, no rowing, no more team building. Just walking, walking, calm, peaceful. From somewhere, Damien appeared as if the beach were his living room. Sand-colored shorts, a plain crewneck tee, sneakers so spotless it was obvious this was not a man who ever touched the sea without a stack of 4 cotton towels waiting. Heading to the North Cliffs? He asked casually. Yes. I heard the view is so beautiful it makes people forget their exes. Lila shrugged. If that's true, I might climb it twice. I'll come with you, Damien said as casually as giving a weather report. Lila blinked. What are you, my bodyguard? The owner of this area. His lips twitched faintly. And I know the path. Some rocks are slippery, it's easy to twist an ankle. So now you're trying to sell me a package deal, a tour guide and a grumpy oversized cat? Damien let out a low chuckle, deep and warm like coffee beans clinking over ice. The trail wound along the rocky slope, the breeze carrying the tang of salt and pine. Lila walked ahead, her hair tied with a red band that looked like a tiny exclamation mark against the endless sea. She paused now and then to snap photos, her sarcastic commentary making it hard for Damien not to laugh. Look at that rock, Lila pointed. It's got the posture of someone saying, ugh, life is exhausting. I thought you'd say it looked like me, hunched over my laptop by the pool. Also accurate, she shot him a sideways glance. You should name it Whitmore's mood. Damien cleared his throat in mock seriousness. I'll consider updating the internal map. A few dozen meters later, they reached a stretch where the rock gleamed slick as glass. The sea lapped loudly just below, clear enough to see the bottom. Feeling a surge of confidence, Lila quickened her pace only to slip. Whoa! Damien reacted faster than she thought possible. He grabbed her wrist, shifted his weight, but she still pitched forward. In the blink of an eye, he bent low, slid one arm under her knees, the other behind her back and lifted her. Hey, I'm not. Don't move. His tone was steady, decisive. Your ankle. Lila looked down obediently. Her ankle was already flushed red, throbbing. She lost. She clutched his collar, embarrassed like she'd just been caught stealing candy. Fine, put me down, I can limp. Number. The word rolled off his tongue like it had been there since birth. It's too slick. I don't want you falling again. You don't want me falling, or you don't want your resort sued. Both. His lips twitched upward. And so, he carried her. On the narrow stone path, between the wind and the crashing waves, Lila felt the steadiness of his back, his steps even and sure. She thought suddenly of Emma's phrase, walking wall. This wall, though, smelled faintly of cedarwood soap. Lila tilted her head, muttering, if you plan on doing this often, I'm charging an embarrassment fee. An embarrassment fee? Yes. Very expensive. Because I'm being carried like a princess while looking like a boiled carrot. Damien chuckled. I'll pay with the resort's internal card. The sound of click, click fell like metallic rain. Lila jerked her head up. On a higher ridge, a group of tourists aimed their phones, zooming in eagerly. A girl in a straw hat shouted, Oh my God, Mr. Whitmore is carrying his girlfriend. So cute. A man beside her live-streamed enthusiastically. Breaking news, folks. The ice billionaire just turned into a romance hero. Lila wanted to sink straight into the sea. She yanked her cap lower, hissing, Put me down, right now. I'll crawl on my elbows if I have to. Relax, Damien kept walking steadily. This trail has steps up ahead. Fewer people will notice. Fewer people? They're already adding subtitles for the whole universe. Drop me before hashtag Princess Carrie at Azure Pearl goes viral. Damien said nothing, but she felt his shoulders shake faintly. Good God, he was laughing. Back on the wide beach, resort staff rushed over with a folding chair and first aid kit. A young attendant spoke, voice dripping with awe. "Mr. Whitmore, is your girlfriend okay?" She wasn't Lila, who shot up, ready to correct, but Damien's light touch on her back pressed her gently down. "She's fine. Just a minor sprain," he said calmly. The attendant grinned, scribbling in his eyes not "sprained ankle," but fluttering heart. Two female staffers whispered excitedly nearby. "I shipped them since the buffet night." He carried her just like in a K-drama. Lila looked up at the sky. "Universe, could you please send a giant gust of wind to blow every phone into the ocean?" Emma came running, hair flying wildly. "Lila, oh my God!" Her eyes lit up like LED bulbs. "Do you know what the whole beach is saying? The billionaire has a secret girlfriend. I don't know whether to celebrate or grab popcorn." "Grab me." "A towel to hide under first," Lila growled. Damien crouched, examining her ankle with surprising skill. His fingers were cool, firm, efficient. "What are you, a doctor?" she snapped. "Number." He wrapped a soft brace quickly, expertly. "I just learned not to panic." "Well, I'm panicking plenty," Lila muttered, glancing at the crowd, casually passing by, with phones raised shamelessly. Only then did Damien lift his gaze. His eyes swept the onlookers, icy and sharp. In a second, the crowd thinned, retreating as if they remembered ice can melt. But it can also freeze. What struck Lila most, though, was this. He didn't correct them. "No, she's just a guest. No, please don't misunderstand." He stayed silent, as if accepting the rumors drumming louder around them. In the small infirmary beside the beach, Lila sat on the bed, hugging an ice pack. With just the two of them, she slammed it down on the table. "Why didn't you say anything? One sentence would have cleared it up." "She's not my girlfriend." Easy as breathing, Damien leaned against the wooden cabinet, arms crossed. "And you think they'd believe it?" "Some people would. At least fewer live streams." Lila glared. "You're using me as a shield, aren't you? If you don't deny it, people stop barging into your life, stop asking questions, stop bothering you. Very convenient." He studied her for a long moment, the look of a man who measured market heartbeats, now measuring the heartbeat of a furious woman. At last, Damien said slowly, "Partly true, but not because you're a shield, because you aren't something I want to deny." The air froze. The ice pack in Lila's hand suddenly felt too cold. She stammered, "No, don't say things like that. Don't throw vague PR lines at me." She straightened. "Whatever this is, I didn't sign up to be your paparazzi wall. I came here to relax. And I hate rumors." "So do I," Damien nodded. "What I hate most are things I can't control." "Congratulations." Lila braced her hands on the bed, eyes glinting like knives. "I belong to that category." They stared at each other, the tick-tock of the wall clock loud between them. Outside, the sun had risen high. The blast of a tour boat's horn cracked the silence like glass. Damien shifted, no longer defensive. He stepped to the table, set down two jade-colored tickets. Seabreeze Cruise, Sunset Deck. "There's a sunset cruise tonight?" He placed one ticket into her hand. "I'll handle the rumor cleanup. You don't have to be a shield, but give me a chance to talk properly. Somewhere quiet. No phones, no audience." "For what?" Lila asked warily. "To apologize." His voice was simple. "And to propose an arrangement. One that costs you nothing but an evening." "An arrangement?" Lila narrowed her eyes. "Sounds like the opening line of a messy contract." "Maybe," Damien held her gaze. "But it's a contract where you set the terms." Lila pressed her lips together, weighing her options. In her head, three voices argued, "Go, Emma, don't, logic, and maybe," her treacherous heart. Finally, she shoved the ticket into her pocket. "I'll come," she said firmly. "But if one more camera flashes tonight, I swear I'll toss you and that ticket into the sea." The corner of Damien's mouth curved, almost like a silent vow. "I'll make sure the sea holds only waves." As Lila hobbled out on crutches, the bright corridor stretched endlessly before her. In her ears still echoed his words. You aren't something I want to deny. Foolish, vague, dangerous. Like sunset light itself, so beautiful that it makes you forget to reapply sunscreen. At the beach bar, staff whispered, "Will they go public?" "Probably tonight. Word is the boss booked a private boat." Lila heard, lifted her head, and smiled faintly, the smile of someone who knew she was walking into a strangely quiet kind of storm. Meanwhile, from his office window, Damien looked out over the sand. He set his phone down, silenced all notifications, and for the first time in months, cleared his evening schedule completely. The rumors still buzzed like waves, but within the buzz, they had started to truly listen to each other. And that was the only news that mattered. Soul Stories fam, if you're watching on another channel, come home to us at Soul Stories, where tens of thousands of listeners and sharers come together. That afternoon, the sunset cast amber light across the sea. Waves lapped steadily, but all Lila could hear in her head was the buzz of messages spreading everywhere. "Mr. Whitmore has a girlfriend. I saw them holding hands on the cliffs. It must be real." Lila wanted to bury herself in the sand, one twisted ankle, and suddenly she'd become the accidental lead actress in a luxury romance drama. The infirmary door swung open. Damien walked in, carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. He set one in front of her and sat down as casually as if this were his private office. "We need to talk." Lila glared. "If this is about sorry for turning you into gossip for the entire resort, you're too late." "Number," Damien nodded calmly. "I want to propose an agreement." He clasped his hands together, eyes steady. "The rumor's already out. If we don't handle it, tomorrow, the real paparazzi will show up. They'll ruin your vacation. And mine." "What are you planning?" Lila asked warily. "We pretend to date." His tone was blunt, as if the suggestion were as simple as ordering another bottle of water. "Excuse me." Lila nearly choked on her tea. "Me? With you?" "Yes," Damien emphasized. "If people believe we're together, they'll stop asking questions. Stop speculating. Later, we can quietly break up once you leave." Hands on her hips, Lila scoffed. "Sounds like a cheap soap opera." "But effective," Damien replied with such infuriating calm that she wanted to scream. After a long glare-off, Lila exhaled sharply. "Fine, but this is only a pretense. Nothing more, nothing less." Damien nodded, agreed. "And you follow my script. I'll consider it." "No, you will follow it," Lila pressed, "or else I'll live stream exposing Billionaire Whitmore signs fake love contract." Damien chuckled softly and extended his hand. "A verbal agreement? A verbal agreement?" She shook his hand, sparks flying in her eyes. In that instant, Lila felt like she'd just signed away her soul to a smirking, oversized cat. The next day, the entire resort witnessed the debut of the Couple Goals show, starring Lila and Damien. 1. Breakfast at the beachfront restaurant. Damien pulled out her chair. "Careful, this seat's reserved for my girlfriend." "Fake girlfriend?" Lila smiled tightly. "Thank you, contract boyfriend." Around them, guests gasped and cooed, while Emma laughed herself silly from the corner. 2. Stroll along the beach. Damien took Lila's hand casually. "This is in the agreement," he murmured. "The agreement doesn't include your hand is oddly warm." Lila shot back, cheeks burning. Passers-by stared at them as if they were walking straight out of a wedding ring ad. 3. Poolside lounging. Damien set a cocktail in front of her. "Drink, people are watching." "Yes, director," Lila smirked, clinking glasses with him. Cheers to this ridiculous play. Yet their laughter, oddly enough, rang real. What annoyed Lila most? The more they pretended, the more everyone believed. Whispers floated around them. "Look at them, total newlyweds. So Mr. Whitmore actually smiles? Miracles exist." Emma couldn't resist sending Lila a secret photo. Damien leaning in, listening to her, lips curved slightly. Her message read, "You're acting really well, Bennett." Or maybe, not all acting. Lila shoved her phone into her bag, muttering through clenched teeth. "This is pretend, 100% pretend." But somewhere in her chest, something warm stirred, and that was anything but fake. That night back in her room, Lila sat before the mirror, chin resting on her hand. She wondered, what exactly have I agreed to? Meanwhile, Damien sat in his office, laptop open, but untouched. He replayed their handshake in his mind, brief, sharp, yet leaving behind a strange sensation. As if he had just taken the first step into a chess game no opponent had ever dared challenge him to. And for the first time, Damien admitted to himself, maybe this won't be just a pretend agreement. The next morning, the sky was blue like a piece of glass rinsed clean with soap. Lila woke up earlier than usual, a rare feat for someone who could once sleep like a rock through 3 missed calls from her editor. She stood before the mirror, eyeing her ankle, less swollen now thanks to the brace. Beside it lay the straw hat Emma had left on the table, with a neat note, "Go out. You know who is waiting, and don't forget sunscreen." Lila sighed and put on the hat. Her contract boyfriend, a phrase that already sounded absurd, had texted a single line, 9 o'clock, Coconut Path. Got something for you. No emoji, no heart, no smiley. Just punctuation straight as an invoice. And yet, for some reason, her heart fluttered like someone tapping gently at its door. Damien was waiting under the palms. No laptop, no headset. Just 2 cheap popsicles, the kind resorts like this hid in the back corner as though they lowered the brand's prestige. He handed her one, saying simply, "You mentioned this flavor the other day. I asked the kitchen." Lila took it, the tart strawberry brushing her tongue. She arched a brow. "I just mentioned it in passing. You actually paid attention? People notice you less when you smile." His gaze held hers, brief but glimmering with something. "And I want you to look at ease today." Lila broke off a bite of the popsicle, smirking. "Don't say things people could misunderstand. Remember our agreement?" "I remember," he said, walking beside her on the cool sand. "That's why I need to play the boyfriend role properly." "Oh, so the role now requires keen observation? I'm an investor. It's a professional habit." She glanced sideways. Yes, he was still Damien, the man of few words, quick decisions, rare smiles. But this morning, under the soft sun, Lila saw something rare in him, a quiet kind of care. At the beach, a group of guests invited them to join a volleyball game. Emma popped up out of nowhere, the messenger of fate nudging Lila. "You two, join my team. They're short on players." "I'm not good at this," Damien said flatly. "You're supposed to be pretending to date," Emma shot back. "Couples in love play in the sun, laugh, tumble in the sand. Pick one." Damien looked at Lila. She raised her brows in challenge. "Big cat, are you brave enough to play?" His eyes softened, lips twitching. "If you insist, kitten." Lila froze for 2 seconds. Kitten? The nickname fluttered through the air, leaving behind a strange warmth. She pretended to wave it off. "Don't overuse English. You're not charging by the word." The game began. Lila served. Damien blocked like a moving steel pole. The opposing team hit harder. Lila stepped back too far and nearly tripped into a sand rut. Damien's hand caught her back, perfectly timed. Contract boyfriend or not, his hand was warm, steady. Long enough that Lila realized, even without an agreement, she wanted it there. "I'm fine," she murmured. "I know." He withdrew his hand. "But I don't like almost." "Control freak much?" "Number." He intercepted the next ball cleanly. "I just want to make sure you don't fall twice in one day." Cheers erupted. Emma threw her arms up. "Point for us. Couple power." Lila shot her a glare. "One more. Couple power and I'm checking out." "Try me," Emma winked. "Chemistry doesn't lie to cameras." Lila leapt to tip the ball, her fingers brushing it just enough to drop it on the line. The other team groaned. Damien gave her one of his signature approving nods. "Good read, of course," she grinned. "I've read more terrible drafts than the number of contracts you've signed. Reading a ball's nothing." They won 2 sets. During the break, Damien handed her a water bottle that was already open. "Be careful, no fussing, just within easy reach." A quiet kind of attentiveness, not flashy, but enough to slow her heartbeat to an unsteady rhythm she couldn't deny. At noon, they sat in a wooden cabana overlooking the sea. Sunlight filtered through the thatched roof, scattering golden threads across the table. Damien's phone lay face down, for once completely ignored. Serious question, Lila said, biting into a pineapple. Have you ever pretended to date for PR purposes? Never. His gaze didn't waver. I hate lying. Then what are we doing? Managing context. He tilted his head slightly, sounding like his own inner defense attorney. The truth is, I'm here with you. I don't want you. The girlfriend part is just a temporary label to quiet the noise. Leela rested her chin on her hand, lips curving. Temporary labels can be painful when you peel them off. I know. His reply was slow, deliberate. I'll be careful when I peel this one. Her words caught in her throat. It wasn't sweet talk. It was something subtler, a recognition that even pretend things could leave marks. That afternoon, Emma dragged the group to a small ice cream stand under the palms. Lila chose salted caramel, Damien vanilla. Safe choice, she teased. I've had enough risk for one day with volleyball. He smirked. And you? I add salt to remind myself life isn't all sweet. And you still finish the cone, Damien observed, which means you're not afraid of the bitter parts. I'm only afraid of you, Lila said lightly, crunching her cone. Afraid one day you'll stop looking at me like a crisis management project. Damien fell silent for a beat, long enough for the waves to crash once. Then he said, slow and unguarded, I'm not good at naming things, but sometimes I enjoy the way it feels to hold your hand. The air quivered like a plucked violin string. Lila deflected instinctively. Well, my hands are warm. Works like a heat pack. Maybe. His smile was rare enough that the ice cream vendor nearly dropped his cone. Either way, I don't mind. By sunset, honey lights spread across the water. The beach was quiet, just the faint echo of a ball bouncing in the distance. Lila and Damien walked slowly, hand in hand for the agreement, for the cameras, for reasons neither admitted. A boy tugged at his mother's sleeve as they passed. Mom, are they in love? The mother smiled. What do you think? He looks at her as he would his vanilla ice cream. Damien froze mid-step. Lila burst into laughter, then coughed to cover it up. As they sat on the wooden steps, Damien seemed ready to say something serious, but a group of tourists passed by, chanting, Couple goals, don't forget a photo together. Lila groaned, chin on her knees. The universe's director never gives us one uninterrupted romantic scene. Damien stared at their linked hands, weighing whether to let go or hold tighter. He chose to keep them there. Maybe because perfect scenes only exist in movies, he murmured. Real life has people walking by, sand in your shoes, the smell of salt, and you sitting here teasing me. Hey, teasing's my specialty. Lila jutted her chin. You should be grateful. I am. His gaze lingered longer than it should have. I just don't know how to stop needing it anymore. Her heart stumbled a beat. Quickly, she pulled the agreement wall back up. Reminder, this is just acting. She stressed each word like convincing herself. People are watching. Right. Damien nodded. Just acting. They sat in silence listening to the gulls. Somewhere behind them, Emma filmed sneakily, already drafting the caption in her head. Pretend or real pretending? The wind picked up. Damien draped his light jacket over Lila's shoulders. She tugged it close, catching the familiar cedarwood scent. Thanks, it's in my script, he said smoothly. Liar, Lila smirked. Your script only has 3 words. Keep her safe. Damien didn't deny it. After a long pause, he asked softly, Tomorrow, shall we kayak again? I want to get it right this time. To flip us over again? To keep you from falling. Lila bit her lip, staring down at their hands. She didn't pull away. Neither did he, and in this so-called act, the gesture felt too real to separate. When the beach lights flicked on, Lila stood and cleared her throat. All right, contract boyfriend, walk me back. A girl needs her beauty sleep for part 2 of this show. Understood. Damien followed slowly, voice low, almost playful. Lead actress needs her rest. The producer can't risk losing ratings. If the producer gets noisy, I'll cancel the contract. Then I'll stay quiet, he said, serious in a way that was oddly endearing. Until you need me to speak. They disappeared beneath the palms. Above them, the sky scattered stars like stage lights. At the horizon, the glow of a ship marked a shift in their story. No fireworks, no fanfare. Just the strange comfort of realizing that holding hands was no longer the hardest part of pretending. And though their mouths still said just an act, both knew something had already started rewriting the script. That evening, the resort hosted a poolside gala. Lanterns glimmered overhead, jazz music floated through the air, and guests in gowns and tailored suits mingled under the night sky. Lila slipped into a sea blue maxi dress, reminding herself, this is just the next act of the play. Eat, smile, shake hands. That's all. Damien appeared as if he'd been born for such a backdrop. A perfectly cut black suit, his steel gray eyes cold yet magnetic enough to make more than a few heads turn. Lila stood at his side, hand in his per their verbal agreement, but her heart refused to cooperate, drumming like its own jazz solo. The lively atmosphere faltered the moment a woman arrived. A crimson dress, heels clicking across the deck like sparks of fire. Her smile cut straight toward Damien. Hello, Damien. Her voice was honeyed, but it chilled the air. It's been a long time. Lila glanced sideways, startled to see Damien stiffen. His gray eyes flickered, as if some locked door had been flung open. It was Victoria Hale, his ex-fiancée, once dazzling on magazine covers at his side. The headlines back then were as loud as the rumors hounding Lila now. Runaway bride escapes the wedding of the century. Victoria's smile sharpened. I thought you'd never show your face in public again. Damien's reply was clipped, low and rigid. I don't change because you think so. Lila tilted her glass, pretending nonchalance, but every word sank straight into her ears. Victoria leaned closer, voice edged like glass. You're still the same. Avoiding crowds, avoiding cameras. No one here knows that the flawless Mr. Whitmore is really just a lonely man, terrified of letting anyone touch the wound. Damien's grip tightened on his glass. We have nothing left to discuss, Victoria. Nothing? She laughed bitterly. We had everything, and you threw it away because you couldn't open up. Lila lowered her eyes, her chest tightening. So, that was why he built his walls of ice. Quietly, she stepped back, giving him space. But unexpectedly, his gaze found hers an anchor in the sudden storm. The party carried on, but Damien spoke less than usual. He no longer played the part, no teasing smirks. Instead, his eyes were distant, his shoulders taut. Trying to break the tension, Lila nudged softly. Do you know what you look like standing here, stone still in the corner? What? Damien asked flatly without looking at her. A very expensive statue. Beautiful, yes, but cold. Lonely. Damien turned slightly. For a moment, fatigue flickered in his eyes before the usual composure snapped back into place. You don't need to concern yourself. I'm not concerned. Lila crossed her arms. I'm just saying. His head dipped, lips pressed tight, but his eyes softened. Just a fraction. When the party ended, guests drifted away, leaving only the sound of waves crashing in the distance. Damien stepped onto the terrace. Lila hesitated, then followed. Moonlight spilled silver across his shoulders, painting him like a portrait beautiful and unbearably sad. You don't owe me any explanation, Lila said quietly. I just get it now. Why you avoid crowds? Why you keep your distance? Damien stayed silent, staring out to sea. At last, his voice came low, rough. I thought I'd buried that memory, but seeing her again, I realized there are still cracks. Everyone has cracks. Lila shrugged lightly. The difference is you plaster yours over with cement. I cover mine with silly stickers. A soft, genuine laugh slipped from him short, but real enough to ease the weight between them. Silly stickers, huh? He shook his head. You always find a way to make things less heavy. Someone's got to, Lila replied, tilting her head. You can't keep growling forever. They stood there listening to the sea's murmur, and under the moonlight, for the first time, Damien didn't look at her as a contract partner, but as someone he might let into the no-go zone of his heart. The next morning, Lila made a firm decision. Stay away from Damien Whitmore. Avoid him the way I avoid 3 a.m. deadlines. She woke up early, skipped breakfast at the main restaurant, and ordered room service instead. Rather than heading to the pool or the beach, she chose a quiet trail few people used. When Emma invited her to shop at the resort boutiques, Lila claimed she needed rest and a face mask. Avoiding a billionaire in a sprawling resort sounded easy, but in reality, it felt like a game of hide and seek, where the other player was always just one step behind. Meanwhile, Damien sat in his glass-walled office overlooking the sea. For the first time, work didn't consume him. He realized silence no longer felt as comforting as it used to. Every morning, he was accustomed to seeing Lila at the breakfast table, sometimes bickering with Emma over cappuccinos versus lattes. He was used to hearing her laugh echo up from the pool. Now all of it was gone, replaced only by the sound of waves. The resort once built as his place to hide suddenly felt emptier than ever. Victor, his longtime advisor, entered, glanced over a stack of papers and asked, "You feeling unwell?" "No," Damien replied, then paused. "It just feels like something's missing." Victor smirked knowingly. "Missing? The voice of that girl who teases you all the time?" Damien didn't deny it. Lila, of course, was doing everything possible to avoid Damien. Every time she spotted his figure from afar, she immediately turned away. Every time she heard staff mention Mr. Whitmore, her heart leapt to her throat. "I can't fall into this mess," she told herself. "He doesn't belong to my world, and I refuse to become the never-ending headline of some rumor." But her heart wouldn't listen. Each night, lying in bed, she remembered that fleeting laugh Damien had let slip under the moonlight. The way he'd looked at her, as if, for the first time, he'd allowed someone to glimpse the cracks behind the ice. She shook her head firmly. "No, this is a vacation, not the script of a romance novel." That weekend night, the resort hosted its traditional farewell gala, an elegant outdoor event with music and dancing. Guests were required to dress formally. Emma pleaded with Lila. "You can't skip this. Just once, then we go home. Done." Reluctantly, Lila agreed. She slipped into a turquoise silk dress, trying her best to look as ordinary as possible. The party sparkled beneath strands of golden lights, soft music floating as guests laughed and mingled. And of course, Damien appeared, becoming the axis around which every gaze turned. When the music shifted to a slow melody, the MC cheerfully invited couples onto the dance floor. Lila instinctively stepped back until a strong hand suddenly extended in front of her. "Dance with me," Damien said. It wasn't quite a command, but it wasn't a request either. I don't dance," Lila stammered. "Neither do I." He arched a brow. "But I think we can be clumsy together." Before she could refuse, she was already being led to the center of the floor. Damien's hand rested lightly but firmly against her back. Lila placed her hand in his, feeling heat sear through his palm. They moved slowly. The first step was awkward. She accidentally stepped on his shoe. "Sorry," Lila gasped. "It's fine," Damien said, lips twitching. "I can take it. Your shoes probably cost as much as my car. I bought them to wear, not display." His answer made her laugh, loosening the tension. They turned across the floor, the music drawing them closer. Lila glanced up, meeting his gray eyes no longer cold or distant, but focused entirely on her, as though she were the only one in the crowded gala. "You know," she whispered, "this is the first time I believe you're not a statue." Damien bent down, his breath brushing her ear. "And this is the first time I believe I can walk beside someone without fearing the stumble." Her heart skipped wildly. She quickly looked away, forcing a laugh. "Don't say lines like that during a public dance, Mr. Whitmore. Too misleading." "All right." He nodded, but his eyes never left hers. "Then I'll save them for when we're alone." As the song ended, the crowd erupted into applause. Some even gushed aloud. They look perfect together. Their chemistry is off the charts. Flustered, Lila hurried off the dance floor. Damien didn't stop her, just watched with a look blending patience and resolve. Inside, he knew one thing for certain. She can run, but I won't let her disappear from my world. The morning after the gala, Lila's cheeks were still burning whenever she thought about the awkward yet deeply charged dance from the night before. It was just a dance, Bennett. Just a dance. Nothing more, she told herself. Yet her heart skipped every time she recalled those gray eyes fixed so intently on her. She decided to keep her distance, but the universe, as always, had other plans. By noon, Lila had retreated to the quiet little garden beside the pool. the most deserted corner of the resort, to read. Damien appeared as if he had radar tuned to her presence. He didn't ask, "Mind if I sit?" He simply sat down beside her, radiating that infuriating mix of discomfort and familiarity. "You've been avoiding me," Damien said flatly, eyes still on the grass. "I need space," Lila replied softly but firmly. He was silent for a beat, then exhaled. "Lila, I don't want you to leave. If I have to," he paused, searching for words, "I'll tell everyone that you're important to me." At that exact moment, a group of guests passed by. They only caught fragments. "To tell everyone, you're important to me." Their eyes lit up like fireworks. A society lady gasped, "Oh my goodness, is he about to propose?" "Propose!" Her friend nearly dropped her straw hat. "Mr. Whitmore, proposing right here at his own resort. How romantic." The whispers spread like wildfire. Within an hour, the whole resort was buzzing. Mr. Whitmore proposed to the mystery girl. An engagement at Azure Pearl? Restaurant staff, prep roses and champagne now. The employees got so carried away, they transformed a small banquet room into a surprise celebration. Red roses covered every table. Champagne chilled in ice buckets. Candles glowing everywhere. Emma burst into Lila's room, eyes shining like headlights. "Do you know what they're saying? Damien's proposing to you tonight." "What?" Lila shrieked, nearly falling off her chair. Who on earth came up with this ridiculous script? "No one made it up. People overheard him saying you're important to him." Lila smacked her forehead into a pillow. "Great. Born to be an accidental actress, that's me." That very afternoon, Lila stormed into Damien's office. "Do you know what the resort is preparing? Roses, candles, champagne like we're filming a diamond ring commercial." Damien calmly set his pen down, meeting her glare. "I know, you know," she exploded, "and you let them?" "I don't see the need to deny it," he said evenly. Denial would only make the rumors spread faster. Lila nearly jumped out of her skin. "Do you not know how to say no?" "I don't want to say no to you being important," Damien said bluntly, voice low and unshakable. For a moment, Lila felt her heart seize in her chest, but then alarm bells blared in her head. "Do you realize what this will turn into?" she demanded, voice trembling. "Tabloids, paparazzi, the internet plastering memes of me with hashtag Mrs. Whitmore." "I can't survive that circus," Damien faltered. He had never thought about it from her perspective as an outsider, without the armor of reputation to shield her. Lila clenched her fists, took a deep breath. "I can't keep doing this. I'm leaving the resort." "Lila." Damien stepped closer, eyes raw with emotion. "Don't disappear like this." "I have to." She turned away, her voice breaking with tension. "Before this spirals out of control." She hurried to the door, not daring to look back. If she did, she feared she'd weaken, afraid those gray eyes would tether her to him. Damien stood frozen, hand half raised, too late. For the first time in years, he felt utterly powerless. The resort he'd built, the world he controlled in a heartbeat, it felt hollow without her. By late afternoon, the sunlight painted the beach bronze. Resort staff were still busily preparing the surprise proposal party, unaware that the supposed bride-to-be was zipping up her suitcase. Layla gazed out from the balcony one last time and whispered, "I'm sorry, Damien, but I don't have the courage to live in this script." She closed the suitcase. The sound of the zipper felt like a cut. Meanwhile, Damien stood in his office, staring down at the courtyard now filled with roses and flickering candles. Once again, he found himself in the perfect world he had built, but without her, it meant nothing at all. Damien couldn't recall the exact moment he shot up from his chair, only that when his gaze landed on the roses and glowing candles being arranged below, something inside his chest tightened. A single voice thundered in his mind. "She's leaving. If you don't stop her, she'll be gone." He'd always been the man in control of markets, contracts, numbers, even people's wary glances. But there was one thing he couldn't calculate: the emptiness that came when Lila's teasing laughter was gone. The resort he'd built as a fortress of quiet suddenly felt suffocating in its silence. Damien strode out of his office, ignoring the confused staff still setting up for the proposal celebration. At the front desk, he demanded, "Flight list. Any departures from the island tonight?" The receptionist stammered, "Yes, Mr. Whitmore. But there's also the passenger ferry." He didn't wait to hear more. He spun on his heel and jumped into a resort shuttle. First stop, the tiny airport. He raced through the terminal, eyes scanning every face. Each time he failed to spot her, his heartbeat slammed harder. A security officer recognized him, concerned. "Is something wrong, Mr. Whitmore?" "I need to find a woman," Damien rasped. "Brown hair, turquoise dress." The officer shook his head. "No one matching that description has checked in today." Damien clenched his jaw and bolted toward the harbor. At the dock, waves crashed against the pier as tourists lined up to board. Damien pushed through the crowd, eyes darting, every muscle wound tight. Still no Lila. Sweat dampened his brow, though he wasn't sure if it came from running or from the surge of despair rising inside him. Gripping the rail for the first time in years, he felt utterly helpless. A gust of wind swept through. Damien turned instinctively toward the southern beach, the path he and Lila had often wandered. His chest constricted. If it were her, she'd choose the quietest place to say goodbye. He sprinted. The stretch of sand seemed endless, each step like stone, but his eyes never left the horizon. And then he saw her, Lila, small, solitary, her suitcase by her side, perched on a rock, staring at the waves. Her dress rippled in the wind, her hair loose, blending with the dying light of day. Damien froze for a heartbeat, his pulse thundering. Then he moved faster, almost running. "Lila!" She startled, turning. Her eyes widened, a mix of shock and confusion. "Damien, what are you?" He stopped in front of her, breath ragged, voice hoarse as if swallowed by the wind. "I searched the airport, the ferry dock. I can't let you leave like this. I have to." Lila shook her head, trying to stay composed. "I can't handle the stares, the rumors. I don't belong in your world. You're wrong." Damien cut her off, his gaze drilling into hers. "You're the only thing in that world that gives it meaning." She let out a shaky laugh, shoulders tense. "You're only saying that to keep the act alive, but we're not real. This is pretend." Damien stepped closer, voice unwavering. "Not pretend. You're what I want to hold on to." The waves crashed louder, as if drowning out every noise except them. Lila bit her lip, eyes shimmering. "Do you know what that means? If you say it, I'll believe it. I don't play games with my heart." Slowly, Damien lifted his hand and closed it gently over hers. "I've never admitted anything easily, but with you, I don't want to back down anymore." His eyes didn't waver, and for the first time, Lila felt the ice wall around him truly shatter. Tears welled, spilling over, but her lips curved into a trembling, radiant smile. "You really are impossible," she whispered. "But this time, I'll believe you." Damien drew her into his arms. Lila rested her head against his chest, listening to the pounding heartbeat, one thing no one could ever fake. The sunset turned the sea to liquid honey. Birds wheeled overhead, silent witnesses to a story rewritten at last. Damien whispered against her hair, "From today, no more deals, no more pretending. Just me and you." Lila laughed through her tears, arms circling his back. "Good, because I'm tired too. Tired of pretending I don't care about you." They held each other, letting the waves crash and the wind howl. On the very beach that had once been a place of escape, they had finally found a place to face the truth. A year passed faster than Lila could have imagined. Now she stood on the small stage of the city library hall, holding her newly published book, The Days of Sitting at the Wrong Table. Her heart brimmed with emotions. The travel memoir, sprinkled with bits of autobiography and inspired by that disastrous trip to Azure Pearl, had unexpectedly become a small phenomenon. Readers loved it not for fancy prose, but for its sincerity, humor, and the moments everyone could relate to. Collisions, misunderstandings, and how we stumble upon the most precious things in the chaos. In the audience, Emma waved wildly like a fangirl. A few rows back, Damien sat tall and composed, but his steel-gray eyes shone with a warmth that was anything but cold. He didn't need to say a word, his very presence was the clearest proof. She was no longer sitting at the wrong table in his life. After the book launch, Damien took her back to Azure Pearl. The resort had changed in a year. A new spa, an expanded restaurant, and most notably, a small new building, by the shore, a glass and wood reading house. On the gleaming brass plaque at its entrance, words were engraved. Leela froze, eyes wide, her hand trembling as she touched the sign. Damien, you, he smiled, voice low and warm, with an uncharacteristic hint of shyness. Your idea changed this place. You said travelers don't just need rest, they need somewhere their souls can breathe. I thought that your name deserved to become a place of peace for others. Her eyes filled, wavering between moved and mischievous. Sounds like an ad pitch, but I'll take it, Damien chuckled, reaching for her hand. That evening, the outdoor buffet area was simply decorated. No orchestra, no press, just warm yellow lights spilling onto the sand. Lila blinked in surprise when staff led her to the very same corner table, the one where she had once accidentally sat, setting off a chain of enemies to lovers chaos. On the table sat a bouquet of white lilies, a glass of wine catching the light, and no jacket draped over the chair. You remembered? Lila laughed softly. How could I forget? Damien pulled out her chair, a glint of humor in his eyes. The day you declared me Mr. Cold, and you declared me a nuisance. I was right. Damien nodded. You are a nuisance so relentless. I can't live without you. Lila's heart skipped. She was just about to fire back when Damien stood. From his pocket, he drew a small velvet box. Under the lights, Lila held her breath. Damien knelt, steady hands holding the box, his voice low and raw with honesty. Lila Bennett, from the day you sat at the wrong table, every order in my life was upended, and for the first time, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't want another day to pass without your teasing voice, without your smile. Will you sit at the wrong table with me for the rest of our lives? Tears shimmered in Lila's eyes as laughter broke through them. You really know how to turn a misunderstanding into a lifelong contract. So, your answer? Damien asked, eyes steady. Blushing, Lila nodded. Yes, I will. He opened the box. The ring sparkled like a tiny star. Slipping it onto her finger, Damien rose and pulled her into his arms. The waves clapped against the shore, as if in celebration. From a distance, Emma screamed at the top of her lungs. I knew it. I shipped this from day one. Both of them burst out laughing. Lila leaned her head on Damien's shoulder, whispering, Who would have thought, all because I sat at the wrong table? Not wrong, Damien corrected gently, pressing a kiss into her hair. Destiny. She looked up, eyes shimmering under the golden lights, and smiled. All right, Destiny, but remember, no more hogging chairs. Damien laughed, kissed her softly, sure and tender. They sat down again at the table that had once sparked their sparring, now marking the start of their new chapter. From bitter rivals to fate's choice, they had found each other, not by mistake, but by design. Thank you for being part of Soul Stories. If you're listening on another channel, come back to the official home so you can continue our love journeys together with the Soul Stories family.